Esteemed delegates, today the Palestinian territory under Israeli occupation have become one of the most striking places of injustice. If the images of an innocent Palestinian woman who was murdered heinously by Israeli security forces on the street just a few days ago will not awake the global conscience, then we are standing at a point where words are not sufficient. I'm quite curious. What about this map of Israel? Where is Israel? Where does the land of Israel begin and end? Look at this map. Where was Israel in 1947? And where is Israel now, especially between the years 1949 and 1967? Where was Israel and where is Israel now? Look, this is 1947, the land of Palestine. There's seemingly almost no Israeli presence on these lands. The entire territory belongs to the Palestinians, so the map suggests. But the year 1947, the distribution plan takes place, gets ratified, Palestinian lands start shrinking, and Israel starts expanding. And from 1947 to 1967, Israel is still expanding, Palestine is still shrinking. And today, the current situation, there is seemingly no Palestinian presence. The entire land belongs to Israel. But would it suffice Israel? No. Israel is still willing to take over the remaining of the land, but what about the United Nations Security Council? What about the United Nations? And what about the resolutions therein? Are those resolutions being activated? Are they being implemented and enforced? No. So we have to ask ourselves, what does the UN serve? Under this roof, we are producing resolutions without any effect. So when do you think, or where do you think justice can prevail? This is our main suffering. This is where the pain is coming from. The current Israeli government and the administration, right next to these murders and atrocities, is busy with intervening and attacking the historical legal status of Jerusalem and holy sacred lands and artifacts. As Turkey, we have a very clear stance on this issue. The immediate establishment of an independent Palestinian state with homogeneous territories on the basis of the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital is the only solution. Any other peace plan other than this will never have a chance of being fair, just, and it will never be implemented. Now, I'm asking from the rostrum of the United Nations General Assembly, where are the borders of the State of Israel? Is it the 1947 borders? The 1967 borders? Or is there another border that we need to know of? How can the Golan Heights and the West Bank settlements be seized, just like other occupied Palestinian territories, before the eyes of the world, if they still are not within the official borders of this state? Is the aim of the initiative promoted as the deal of the century to entirely eliminate the presence of the state and the people of Palestine? Do you want another bloodshed? All actors of the international community, in particular the UN, should provide concrete support to the Palestinian people beyond more promises. In this regard, it's very important for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East to continue its activities effectively. Turkey will continue to stand by the oppressed people of Palestine as she has always done. It is also very important for a fair and a peaceful future that the South Caucasus ceases to be one of the areas of conflict and tension in the world. It is unacceptable that Nagorno-Karabakh and its surrounding areas, which are the Azerbaijani territories, are still occupied despite all of the resolutions adopted. One of the problems to which the international community fails to devote enough attention is the Kashmiri conflict, awaiting a solution for 72 years. The stability and prosperity of South Asia cannot be separated from the Kashmiri issue. Despite the resolutions adopted by the United Nations Security Council, Kashmir is still besieged and 8 million people are still stuck in Kashmir. They cannot get out. In order for the Kashmiri people to look towards a safe future with their Pakistani and Indian neighbors, it is imperative to solve this problem through dialogue on the basis of justice and equality instead of conflict. Another issue that the world seems to remain indifferent is the humanitarian tragedy Rohingya Muslims are currently facing. The Independent Commission of Inquiry established under the United Nations has recorded the existence of a genocidal intent behind the events perpetrated in Myanmar's Rakhine State. Turkey will continue to carry out its initiatives and endeavors to ensure the security and fundamental rights of the Rohingyas, as well as the humanitarian relief activities we have undertaken since the first day. The invasions, the conflicts, and terrorist activities that continued in an uninterrupted fashion for almost 4 decades in Afghanistan have led to significant challenges at a global level. It is now time for peace and security to be restored. This is up to us to assume responsibility and take up action. Esteemed delegates, today one of the biggest threats to global peace and stability is the skyrocketing racist, xenophobic, discriminatory, and anti-Islamic rhetoric. Muslims are ranking number 1 who are the subjects of hate speech, discrimination, and defamation against their sacred values. The most striking example is the terrorist attack that took place last March in Christchurch in New Zealand. Just like the terrorist attack targeting Muslims in New Zealand was unacceptable, the acts of terrorism targeting Christians in Sri Lanka and Jewish communities in the United States are equally wrong and unacceptable. We are responsible for turning this disease into a raging insanity. The populist politicians seeking to garner votes by provoking these tendencies, as well as the communities normalizing hate speech under the pretext of freedom of expression, are in the leading spots, and they are the ones to blame. The prejudice, the ignorance and bigotry, as well as the attempts of marginalization towards the migrants, particularly the Muslims, pave the way for the rising of these morbid tendencies. This scourge can only be defeated by common will and efforts. It is our fundamental duty as statesmen and stateswomen to adopt an inclusive and tolerant public rhetoric to eradicate this foe once and for all. The Honorable Secretary General of the UN has recently introduced an action plan for safeguarding religious sites. It's a UN initiative in the establishment of which Turkey has shown political leadership as a part of Alliance of Civilizations. We hope that this action plan will help raise awareness on this issue, and I hereby request the designation of March the 15th by the United Nations as the day when the Christchurch attack was carried out to become the International Day for Solidarity Against Islamophobia. I also invite the Islamic world to start a thorough assessment of all the issues, particularly the Sunni-Shia divide, which have provided so far the ground for its internal conflicts, as well which served as political instruments for power struggles and settle the disputes once and for all. Turkey is a rightful successor to the collective heritage of both Eastern and Western civilizations due to our geographical location at the center of the ancient world. Therefore, we are obliged to take necessary steps forward and assume responsibility and rise up to the occasion. We continue to fulfill our responsibilities towards humanity as we are deeply affected, indirectly or directly, as a result of crises that besiege our region. A United Nations, and in particular a Security Council reformed on the basis of justice, moral values and conscience, will provide hope and aspiration to humanity once again. Turkey stands ready to support all of the endeavors and initiatives in that regard. With this understanding, we are willing to assume the presidency of the 75th United Nations General Assembly. Therefore, we have nominated for this important post Ambassador Volkan Bozkır, former Minister of European Union and current Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. We have full confidence that Mr. Bozkır, a seasoned diplomat and politician, will shoulder this responsibility very successfully. I believe you will not spare your support to him. Istanbul, the biggest city in Turkey, currently hosts various UN regional agencies, and we would like to turn Istanbul into a bigger regional and a global hub for the United Nations. The United Nations Technology Bank for the least developed countries became operational in the vicinity of Istanbul last year. We also appreciate the positive and encouraging reactions we have received in return for our proposal to host a United Nations Youth Center in Istanbul, which I have announced last year from this very rostrum. The members to the UN Group of Friends of Mediation that we co-chair have reached 59. We have carried this UN initiative into the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. I believe that it is within our reach to find fair, equitable, and conscientious solutions to all of the global challenges that we face. And I would like to conclude my remarks with the following wishes. Freedom for all, peace for all, prosperity for all, justice for all, a peaceful and a safe future for all. I wish the work of the 74th session of the UNGA to be successful. I greet you all with my most heartfelt emotions, with love and respect on behalf of my people. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank President of the Republic of Turkey, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the President.